glad to be rid of that freak.
And I thought we were close. So nice to finally meet you, face to face.
Well, fuckle-doodle-doo. Every week I check the episodic order against my own memory to ensure that I'm doing the reviews correctly, and to my surprise, upon looking at this week's, it turns out Christmas came fucking early.
Fuck yeah, brrr.
After reviewing what I consider to be one of the duds of the show last week, I can safely say I'm genuinely enthusiastic about this one. I will die on a sword with these words, but this deserves to be on the Rushmore of Ben 10 episodes. As possibly the strongest narratively, the creativity to this is off the charts, and how it's been seeded in the previous installments running up to this was perfect, and it delivers one of my favourite villains from the entire series, with understandable motivations, and is as close to a connection as you can get to Ben.
What fun! What fun!
We begin with Ben giving the assist to a wee lad stuck up a tree and goes wild mutt to try and get him down.
Not a great plan.
However, as he crawls up, he's surprised as much as we are by the fact that he can now talk in this form, and the world around him becomes a hellish backdrop to both the lad and the tree becoming Ghostfreaked, and he states that he wants out. Cut to Ben falling out of bed for everyone watching to realise this was a dream. The next day, however, Ben is zoning in and out, where we discovered that they're headed to Bancroft Academy, a possible location for Gwen after the summer, but given the prestigious and snooty attitude and nature surrounding it, Gwen's worried about Ben fucking things up. Once they arrive on campus and are provided the tour, Ben starts seeing visions, shadows and signs following him everywhere, alluding to Ghostfreak being around and that he's starting to grow more powerful. As the tour goes to shit when Ghostfreak kicks up some paranormal activity level bollocks inside a science lab, we see the circus freaks return looking for an easy payday when they are caught by security in a bad move for that guy and they start to terrorise him.
Good times.
As Gwen is about to start ragging on Ben for his actions, he catches wind of the freaks and means to go heat blast, but for the first time in a while, we're graced by Ghostfreak. Yes! He tackles the freaks with more malice and aggression than Ben normally would deliver, to the point that Gwen and Max grow concerned and call him out on it, only for Ghostfreak to chillingly respond, "Ben's not here anymore." The freaks run and Ghostfreak pursues them, only for him to grow panicked as the watch is about to time out, and as it does so, Ben returns uncompromised. However, he turns and is greeted by our old pal, Ghostfreak.
Bad touch, stranger danger!
So, rather than deciding to run, duck and cover, Ben engages in a conversation with the oddity, and it's revealed that he was trapped on the watch. And he explains in a beautiful piece of exposition that just a small sample of ectoneurite DNA can possess their very essence, meaning that for every time Ben felt weird after transforming into him and back, it was really Ghostfreak attempting to take over and escape.
You son of a bitch!
Now that he's free, he exposes himself. Now that he's free, he reveals his true form and is fully aware of the Watcher's potential, but as he backs away, Ghostfreak discovers he can't handle the sunlight and flees in disgust. Ben returns to Max and Gwen and informs them of what's just occurred, while Ghostfreak goes on a recruiting mission and locates the circus freaks, demanding them to help him acquire Ben. Later that night, Ben and the crew gear up to either capture or destroy Ghostfreak when they find him with the circus freaks outside the campus halls, and they engage in a good old spot of fisticuffs when Ghostfreak discovers he can't merge with Ben while he's in another form. After some scares with Gwen and proceeding to chase Ben through a bit of a clock tower as grey matter, Max and Gwen dispose of the circus freaks while Ben manages to get the upper hand on Ghostfreak, dropping the curtain to reveal the sun is suddenly out and it destroys him. We then close on Ben consoling Gwen over her rejection from Bancroft, and they journey off for their next adventure. It's a beautiful feeling when you find that episode that cements your love for a show, and I have always enjoyed a lot of what came to be from this, but when I locked eyes with this particular episode, and admittedly it was much later than this in the release schedule, I knew this show was a keeper. The darker themes explored here added a complexity to Ghostfreak I never considered before, beginning with the fact that he was trapped within the Watch, and that is a rather horrifying situation to consider, but it's equally as fascinating too when he reveals that his species can be actualized from the smallest trace, making it the creator's fault that this could even happen. And consider as well that if this could happen to Ghostfreak on a whim, imagine how many other aliens are or were on the Watch that encountered a similar fate. Though, and spoiler warning for the Ultimate Alien series in the future, but one of the best episodes to come from that show is an encounter almost identical to this, the difference being, however, it's more than one alien inside the Watch that simply wants out and to return to their old lives. Consider what this makes the creator of the watch azimuth as well. It makes him rather ruthless and sadistic that as a Galvin, who are considered the smartest beings in the universe, he'd be aware of this but continues with the process anyway, and it makes you wonder who's truly the fucking villain here.
He's got a point.
Azimuth knowingly created a villain in Ghostfreak and then allowed it to become the bearer's issue, but essentially tortured Ghostfreak as well, as he's supposed to become a suit for Ben to morph into, but instead Ben was filling out his body. However, in the context of this episode and assessing his actions after Azimuth's use of him and what became of him, the rather egregious actions against both the circus freaks and Gwen made for deeply unsettling visuals in this one, but the tangible and intangible moments made for a striking villain and a true monster up against Ben, who had to put those wits to good use that I pointed out a couple of weeks back. The use of Ghostfreak has always been limited, and when I was younger I hated it because the very idea of that species is just awesome, but with the benefit of age and wisdom now, I'm grateful that they used him in such a refined way, as he's a concept that oozes mystery, but Ben never used him to his full potential, and it appears to have been safe for now and in the future. The aggressive nature to him cannot be ruled out though as a potential aspect that defines his species, as we venture to Ghostfreak's homeworld in the Omniverse series, where we discover he rules over the inhabitants of that world too, and most of the creatures there are particularly hostile. The ways that they used him here, and they will again in the future, compared to how Ben functioned with him is night and day, and it makes sense now to why Ben always felt uncomfortable after becoming him. It was always Ghostfreak attempting to peek out and take over, which recontextualizes a lot of those times that Ben became him as just possibly one of the ways of him trying to control the situation. Going back just a little bit, however, it was interesting to see what Ghostfreak did and how he brought out a new side to whoever he possessed. So in the case of Gwen, for example, she already had her martial art prowess, but Ghostfreak almost enhanced that and made her a legitimate weapon. The inhuman moments, like getting her to crawl up the walls and manipulating the host's body as he switched around a fair bit, just goes to prove how little Ben actually understood of an ectoneurite, and sadly we'll never get to see what that could have looked like on him, as this does remove Ghostfreak from the watch.
What the fuck?
Gwen's side plot of wishing to join an academy is something I've thought about over the past couple of weeks since watching this episode, and I wondered for a minute, why does she want to go here? And then it struck me that it's possibly for one of two reasons. Either she wants to steady herself and get the hell away from this life, or until Ben assures her at the end, it's a means to give herself purpose. Throughout the show so far, very little has been done with her besides the Lucky Girl episode, and we don't come back to that in any meaningful way for some time now. But as much as it might have been to challenge herself and feel a sense of normalcy, I can't help but wonder if she's feeling redundant in the group and isn't seeing the use that she has to Ben in being a necessary weight to ground him when his ego drags him up too high. The return of the circus freaks here following their last encounter with Ben in the Zombozo episode was underwhelming and simply just bodies for Ghostfreak to use. I've said before that they aren't the most compelling antagonists for the series, but generally good foils for Ben to just kick around. The prissy little bitch given the tour can do one as well, and in terms of everything else to come from this installment, it all just makes up the remaining cogs that turn a very delightful wheel. This was a horrifyingly enticing escapade that brings a spotlight to one of my favourite aliens that Ben could have ever dialed in, and provides a fascinating story that carries over a little later into the series, but further afield for down the road as well in the Ben 10 franchise. Ultimately, I would always recommend this episode for anybody interested in the series, as it does have a lot of potential on its own and sets up an incredibly good story throughout Season 3. That's all I've got for this week though, everybody. Thank you so much for dropping in. If you like this, be sure to stick around and subscribe for the rest of my videos covering Ben 10. Leave a like to get this video out there, and until next week everyone, take care, and I'll catch you later.